Gentlemen, I'm not a big college football guy, but I've been following this realignment. I've been following the Pac-12 falling into shambles. They're like the Pac-2 now. The Big Ten is like the Big 20 now. Um, Simple question. I had two questions here. I said, thoughts on teams jumping conferences. I don't really care about that. Nobody cares. I want you guys to answer me this. Has college football been ruined?
I think so.
Are you a big college guy? Like you follow it pretty well? Because you could be
So
our
I
barometer on this.
Yeah.
so I do. I think so for me it's twofold. So I think from a fan standpoint, there are some rivalries that you absolutely love.
Mhm.
And most college football rivalries are regional, right? Like Ohio State versus Michigan is such a big deal because Ohio State and Michigan aren't that far apart. And so you can have Ohio State fans travel to Michigan or vice versa. If you are going to have a team in California like UCLA in the same conference as an Ohio State, and now you want to market that as a rivalry, it's not going to feel like it because how many Ohio State fans legitimately can make it to a UCLA game if Ohio State's playing in UCLA? How many UCLA fans legitimately can make it to Ohio State? Because let's be honest, like uh, at least 75% of these stadiums in football are filled by the student body and the athletes' families any given Saturday. So on the football level, like you don't think it makes that big of a deal because the stadiums are big anyway, and no matter who's playing who, especially if we're talking about some of these big schools, like the stadiums are going to be filled. For me, I more so sympathize with the softball players or the baseball players or like the soccer players who those same rivalries exist, but there are some athletes who go to certain programs because it's feasible for their parents to see them play whenever it's time for them to play a home game. Like there was this one girl for I think she played softball for Stanford, and she was saying like, now that we're part of the Big Ten or whatever one they're a part of now, like now if I have a road game, my mom can't come see me play. Whereas we have a road game in UCLA, like it's right down the road. I think a lot of times what we do and what we have done for so long up until recently with NIL is we have decided that college athletes can jack up their schedules and have a very nasty work-life balance. And if you're a football player, put your life on the line as much as an NFL player does and like not reap the benefits of, being put in a video game for money or making money off of your name with sponsorships, where now it's like, okay, now like you have a limit on that, but we don't. And if I'm UCLA and I decide that I don't want to be here anymore, I want to go to the Big Ten because the Big Ten's going to pay us more to be there, and that's what I'm going to do. And unfortunately, because football is the big sport that it is, a lot of these things, of course, are dictated by football. And so when you have basketball players, when you have baseball players and softball players, when you have even hockey players, like they get the short end of the stick because their sports aren't as nationalized. They don't get the same media attention that a football game does, right? Like there's there's three really big tournaments in college. It's March Madness, the College World Series, and the College Football Playoff, which isn't even a tournament because only 4 teams get in anyway, and it sucks. I hate the College Football Playoff so much. It's the dumbest thing ever. But like the beauty of college is that you have an environment where you have all of your friends and all of your family there to see you play this game. When you take a kid from Stanford and put them on a flight to send them to Ohio State, like you're running them like they're professional athletes. Like they don't still have to go to school the next day, don't still have homework. Now they got to get on a red eye from Ohio, get back to Stanford, take a test at 7 a.m. Like no matter what the sport is, that's just it's unrealistic, it's unfair, and it's not feasible. And we've gotten to a point with college football, especially where everything we've seen college football do for the past 5, 6, even 10 years has all been honestly in an effort to keep the SEC from being as dominant as it has been for the better part of the last decade or two with the Alabamas and the LSUs and all that stuff in the world. And I wasn't planning on going this super long soliloquy tonight, so I do apologize. But That's really what this is all about. Like the SEC is doing too much essentially, and there's other teams that want to get a fair share of the pie. And in order to do that, like we would never see a Pac-12 team in the college football playoff, really, because we haven't seen a Pac-12 team in the college football playoff, not legitimately anyway. So the way for one of them to kind of get their piece of the pie and get a shot is to join the Big Ten, because conference championships have become the thing if you want to make it to the college football playoff, instead of just picking the 4 best teams of the conference, regardless of what, or the country, regardless of what conference they play in. Like that. So everything's driven by money, and you get college athletes, student athletes who don't play football are getting the short end of the stick, and they're suffering, and it's not fair. And like I understand why, but also don't understand why. Because then when these kids start failing, it's now you're losing your academic scholarship, and now you can't be on the team. Because there's a strong chance that a lot of these kids can start failing because we're going to start running them like they're professional athletes, getting on red eyes to go across the country like there's the Seattle Seahawks traveling 3,000 miles both ways. It's absurd.
Yeah, I certainly agree. I mean, I certainly doubt you'll find athletes starting to fail classes in large football programs, and we all know why. But yeah,
I meant more so the other sports that
the other sports. I mean,
that football does.
They're doomed. To be honest with you, and like, look, in regards to, is it ruining college football? I mean, look, I'm not a big college football person. I've never been. I always found it weird that they didn't have a playoff, and then when they introduced the playoff, it was supposed to be awesome. But Dwayne Marcus, to your point, it's awful. So the fact that you have individual, and look, I've watched. I mean, I'm for those that may not know, I live in the Northeast. The closest large football college town to me is Rutgers, and I watched them jump into the Big Ten and just could get smoked every single year. And for what? Notoriety? Like, ooh, big deal. Like, so I think the system has always been broken. Dwayne Marcus, you make a great point about, you're eliminating some of the more closer rivalries, which, I mean, if we're going to talk about a fan's perspective and ruining what college football, like, that's what it is, and that's what it's been built off of. And I understand people are thinking with a national wallet and wanting to get more money and get more recognized, but at the end of the day, I mean, college football was never about bringing it to the mainstream, similar like an NFL. It was really just about your school pride and the backing you have and this legacy, feeling to it. But unfortunately, greed and money gets in the way, and we all know the NCAA are nothing but crooks. And thankfully, the students now can get paid off of their likeness, and we just hope that this doesn't ruin things for them, not just in football, but bleeding into other sports too.
Go ahead, Dwayne.
I was just gonna say, and I thought about this the other day. I don't know the logistics of this, of how this would work, but I honestly feel like college football should not be the NCAA. Like, college football should just be college football. Like if you are like the president of Stanford or the president of UCLA, and you're so keen on wanting to go play Ohio State and do that, like, then there needs to be a separate entity for that. Because again, I do not think that players in other sports should suffer because you want to make more money for football. Because, like, here's the thing, right? You don't care about these other sports anyway, because these other sports don't get nearly half the budget that the football team gets anyway. Like, every year we see all these college football teams, they've got new uniforms, they've got new helmets, they've got new training facilities. I can't tell you the last time I've seen a baseball team or a softball team get a new uniform. I can't tell you the last time I've seen a baseball team or a softball team get an upgrade to their field. But Ohio State's football stadium gets upgraded every 6 months. Mm-hmm. We've got new Army and Navy uniforms every year. Oregon releases a whole new uniform set, not a uniform. Like, they release entire new home, away, and alternate jerseys every year because it's football. Like, fine.
Oregon,
its own thing.
Yeah, I understand your argument with Oregon, but Oregon also has a very special relationship with Nike, which also helps too. As much as we think it's also about a big earning program, I mean, being right next door to obviously the largest apparel and sports apparel company helps too.
Yeah, but college football should be its own thing. I think college basketball should be its own thing, because basketball is its own thing in a way. Like, it is its own kind of little bubble. It doesn't feel the same. Like, it doesn't feel the same way as football does. Like, there are football teams that are not good at basketball. There are basketball schools that are not good at football, but there's also softball schools and baseball schools that aren't good at any of those other subjects too, and they deserve to still be great and still be dominant. Like they shouldn't suffer because Stanford's gonna fly halfway across the country to Ohio State in November. You've never played in the snow in November. And you're gonna get the brakes beat off you. It's gonna be embarrassing. Like, you're gonna get smoked on national TV, but it's gonna be okay because you're gonna get a couple extra zeros on the end of the check. Like, that's so lazy, bro.
So I love the passion from both of you. It's great. Dwayne Marcus, you bring up a point. Poor Ohio State softball. Poor Ohio State curling and swimming, or wherever the fuck the nerds are doing down there in Ohio State.
Athletes, Jerm. Athletes.
Nerd athletes. Do you know why Ohio State gets new lockers and new uniforms every 6 months? Because Ohio State sports, athletics, earn $225 million every year in expenses and revenue. Okay? The Ohio State program, the football program, is responsible for 180 million of it. And only wrestling and basketball make up anything that's got in dollar amounts over $1 million. So excuse the fuck out of Ohio State football. And sorry that the softball team has to go play on crabgrass. Just be happy you get to wear the same Buckeye uniform as CJ Stroud. Get your ass out there and swing the bat and shut the fuck up. How about that? I mean, this has not ruined college football. All I did is hear all these old people on TV. Paul Feinbaum about to lose the rest of his hair. This is college football, okay? The college football playoff was supposed to ruin it. You may not like the format, and it's going to change. They're adding what? It's going to be 18, 12 teams, whatever it's supposed to be in a couple of years.
They're doing 12 teams in 2024, so next year.
So one more year of this bullshit format we got, which is not really a playoff. It's just the final 4 teams. Then we're going to get a real playoff. Great.
But it's not going to be a real playoff, though.
Are the best teams with the best records going to be in it and playing one-on-one elimination games until there's a champion? What is it?
No,
what is it?
They're expanding the teams, but the format's not like that's what I mean. Like if Stanford's like teams like Stanford and UCLA are going to the Big Ten, not just for the money, but because winning the Big Ten championship means more in the grand scheme of the college football playoff than winning the Pac-12, because the Big Ten is considered a tougher conference. But that doesn't mean that there are bad football teams in the Pac-12.
Dwayne Marcus, when they used to walk to your door and sell vacuum cleaners is when the Big Ten meant more than the college football championship. Those days are over, buddy. Okay? Nobody gives a fuck about the Big Ten championship and the Lowe's Tostitos Hall of Fame breakfast bowl or whatever the fuck they're playing now down there. This is about the college football playoff. It's why they're expanding to 12 teams. You're not going to sit there and tell me if the 12th team ranked team keeps winning games, they're not going to end up in the championship game, because that's how a tournament works. I don't know if you know that, but guess what? That's what's happening, and that's what the world wants, because that's how sports works. So yes, the playoff was supposed to ruin football, and it didn't. Highest rated games every year are the college football playoff. NIL was going to destroy college football. We've gotten probably the most marketable athletes now to come out of it. And those little softball players you're crying about have benefited from it more than they have ever, right? There's been, swim teams, these kids that are trying to go to the Olympics have gotten way more notoriety off of NIL than NCAA has ever given them, or their little schools. All right.
Yeah, NIL is great.
NIL say it is, but not, oh my God, you can't pay the athletes. They got, but it's only produced better athletes, and it's kept athletes like Trevor Lawrence in Clemson. There was no need for him to stay in Clemson as long as he did. He could have left at any time. NIL will keep your athletes in the school because there's no rush to now go to the pros and get paid if you're in that top 1% of college football players. Shout out to NIL. So the realignment, the divisions, and people have been crying that the conferences don't matter anyway. If anything, they should have forced teams to only play their conference and then let the Big Ten championship be part of the playoff. So each conference would represent a seed in the playoffs. Then You move on to whoever has the best record, play in the championship game. That's how it should be done. But no,
I agree.
You guys are talking about the softball team and all this nonsense. The rest,
because they matter, bro.
No, they don't. Hey,
they're
wrestlers,
people too.
the wrestlers, chess players, swimmers, softball players, baseball players. Sorry, you don't matter. All right, maybe in northeastern, southern North Carolina state with 750 students, you may matter because you don't have enough people for a football team. But all you nerds out there, just enjoy the ride. All right, you go to Ohio State. Enough. Nobody's clamoring for the Ohio State water polo. Like, fuck out of here. All right, it's about the football team. God, I hate that's it is. You're not the only one that brings up that argument. But let's be real here. Like, nobody cares. Nobody, unless you're the parent of a kid. Like, because the buck stops at Ohio State softball. You're like, at that point, there's nowhere else to go. Olympics, whatever, fine. But other than that, just enjoy the ride. You're finish college, get your degree. Like, you're there to not play softball. You're there to get a degree and have some fun. And so yeah, the Ohio State, the rivalry games, they're still going to be there. People are still going to pack the stadiums. They're still going to watch college football. College football can't be stopped, y'all. Like, people are just going to keep people bitch and moan online and on TV, and guys like us are crying about it, but it's not going to stop. People are still going to watch it, and guess what? There's still going to be the same 90% bullshit games that happen throughout the course of the season, and then there'll be the one or two games that we actually are interested in, like Michigan, Michigan State, Ohio, Michigan, whatever. Those will still happen. If you don't think college football, regardless of the realignment, is going to stop those big rivalry games that we get every year, then it don't matter. But nobody cares that Toledo's not going to play Liberty College at 12:30 on a fucking Thursday. Sorry, nobody cares. All right, so that's that. And you can listen to that segment and all our other great podcasts on the Give Us a Shot Network, anywhere you get your podcasts. Apple. I'm a Spotify guy and a Google podcast guy. But anywhere you get your podcast, Spreaker, or if you got an RSS feed, like the nerds at the Ohio State softball team probably have, you can listen to all of our podcasts because all of them are in one spot now, guys. Did you know that? You can listen to Go Talk with Marcus, Stuff About Sports, The Divide Live, the High Spot Podcast, JT and the Don. Just search Give Us a Shot Network wherever you get your podcast. Oh, and the new
podcast.
Protect Our Queens. Yep, September 12th. Yeah, we're getting it popping.